first time she came to me, she was very upset. She spent so much money on, her aesthetic treatment. She didn't get the results that she wanted. I ended up like dissolving her whole face, and we redid, everything. And a year later, she texted me. She's like, you know what, you're making me loving her myself again. So I guess that's one of my success story.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk, where we feature the top medical practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. Today, I have Gwen Bijayayothin, a doctor of nursing practice with an impressive 18 years of nursing experience and a specialized focus on aesthetic medicine for the past 7 years. As the owner of Skin Boutique Medical Aesthetics, Dr. Gwen brings a unique blend of clinical expertise and artistic vision to the field, transforming the way that we approach beauty and wellness. So, Dr. Gwen, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me, Daniel.
So let's dive right into it. How did you first get interested in aesthetics?
Okay, so I've been, since I was young, I love makeup. I love all things beauties. I love skin. But the thing is, like, when I got into nursing, I love the excitement. So I've always been an ER nurse. I work as an emergency room and an urgent care. And one day, one of my boss was like, "Hey, I'm going to open a med spa. Like, do you want to inject?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll do it." So that's how I started.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was like, this is perfect, because at first I didn't even know, like, hey, how am I going to start this? Like, it's so hard to get in. This field is actually pretty hard to get in. Yeah. And I got lucky.
Okay. And so that's how you got into it. So then from there, how did you make that leap from now opening up your own practice?
Okay. So from there, I just been practicing. I was working in the ER the whole time during COVID, and most of the med spa closed. So once we start reopening, I was like, you know what, I need to get back in aesthetic because I really love the field. And eventually I just transitioned to a full-time aesthetic injector. And since then, like, I've been, basically sharpen my skills by working with a plastic surgeon, multiple med spas, and I want to make sure that I'm able to, manage the complications and become more advanced. And now, like, since then I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready, So I took a leap of faith, and then I was like, okay, let's do this.
Awesome. So now you have the practice, have a successful practice, and it sounds like you love what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Now, could you discuss some of the most common treatments that your clients, your patients come to you for, and also why do you think that they're so popular?
Okay, so my clinic, if you've been my patient, you probably know that I'm very big on looking natural, and the results, I am more results driven. Is depend. Most popular in my clinics are regenerative medicine, like Sculptra, Radius. We still use filler. We use filler as a refinement. Right after you build the foundation of the house, then the filler is just like the paint, the furniture. So, Botox, of course, still going to be my most popular. But now that, Sculptra Radius, is one of the most popular treatment. And also PRF, is also regenerative medicine. PRF is your own blood injected into your face, under eyes to build collagen.
Got it.
Yeah.
And are there any new or emerging treatments that you're particularly excited about that are maybe coming out or that you just brought in?
The one that I'm really excited about has to be the regenerative medicine, another regenerative medicine, PDGF. That's something is called platelet derived growth factor. That is one product that I'm actually looking into bring into my practice, because it's also going to help you build your collagen, grow your factor without having drawing your own blood. Is this will help with a lot of my patients who don't like blood draw.
Interesting.
That, and also salmon sperm. That
Interesting.
also look into that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm seeing more and more aesthetic practices starting to integrate regenerative medicine into their
Uh-huh.
practice. So for
Yeah.
people who don't know what regenerative medicine is, or have maybe heard the term but really don't know much about it, could you explain kind of to like the average person what it is, and also why do you see that there's so much benefit to bringing it into the practice?
Let's see, if you ask me, as a regenerative medicine, just basically using your own body to build new cells and collagen instead of adding other substance into to restore those volume or cells.
Got it. And what would you say is the biggest benefit of bringing in regenerative medicine into aesthetic treatments?
Because before, aesthetic medicine is, a lot of people think of filler or, filler as a, like, oh my God, if I walk out of here, I'm gonna look so puffy, I'm gonna look like a cartoon or whatever, look unnatural. So regenerative medicine is more of a natural way to make you look youthful, and instead of like, and patients are more comfortable, like let's say if I'm saying like, oh, you're gonna use your own blood, they were like, oh, but I'm basically not adding any like anything, not any filler on my face, but I'm still gonna have nice skin, so they're more comfortable with that
Got it. So it's really kind of going more towards that natural look, and also
natural
the
face. Yeah.
perception that like they're not gonna have anything fake put into them.
Okay.
It's their
Yeah,
own cells.
correct. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit more about your practice specifically, like, and especially like how do you differentiate your practice from others in the industry? I know there's a lot, like the industry is growing very quickly. It seems like there's med spas popping up all over. So how
Yeah.
do you differentiate your practice from the others?
So how I differentiate is my patient. I treat my patient, not pay. My patient is not just a number. All my patients that come in, they are educated, they care for, and I'm very like special. Like, my expertise is to help them with, go through this aesthetic journal with like a personal care, basically. So how I stand out is just my care is I really spend time with them. I plan the whole year. I'm making sure that, hey, you know what, this is the whole year plan. We in a long-term relationship here. More I guess it's more personable, approachable, and I'm making sure that they get the best results. Not like, you go to a regular med spa and just say, hey, I'm gonna get a lip filler. I'm making sure that their whole face, it's balanced, the proportion, and they're gonna look natural at the end of the treatment or whatever, towards throughout their aesthetic journey to maintain that results as well. So I think that's made me different.
Got it. And I
Yeah.
do want to bring up pricing because I know some practices try and differentiate themselves like, oh, they're the low cost leader, others are more on the higher end. And I think when it comes to the aesthetic side, like there's a very wide range when it comes to pricing. So what are your thoughts when it comes to pricing, how you decide to price in your practice, and really kind of what people should be aware of when it comes to, oh, this person can do it for this really low amount, this other person charged me much more. Like, why is there such a big price difference? Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Okay. So one thing that I tell my patient, every single time they come in, like at the first consultation, don't think of aesthetic treatment as you're buying, you're not buying the products, you're actually buying the end results of you never ever shop like price shop for your face. If it's too cheap, it's probably too good to be true. I tell my patient, this is your face, this is an investment. You want to maintain that, your face is the first thing people see you. They make, also it's confident boost and everything else. So that's why the reason, like, you also want to look at the the expert level, like the level of the expertise that I bring in. I want patient, the reason why I price the way I price is, thank you for bringing it in because this question, because I always want to tell them like, hey, this, you paying for the results, you're not paying for the amount of filler that I'm putting to your face. Think about you buying an expensive art. You're not, like, I seen patients as just, oh, sometimes they said, hey, I bought a whole syringe, like, are you gonna put the whole thing in my face? I'm like, no, sometimes this is already a beautiful art. My art is already done. If I put, like, you're not gonna tell the artist, hey, I have another thing of paint, like throw it in there, like just to make it worth it. I'm like, no, you already have the perfect art. This is what you get and this is how you pay. So that's why I say, when patients come in for aesthetic treatment, I want to just value that, the expert level, the safety that you will receive with all the training, because also it's not just the product that is expensive, it's also the training that I have, all the injectors have to go through in order for them to get to that level of expertise, you know what I mean? There's new injector, there's expert level, there's master injector, advanced injector. So that's, just think about that.
Yeah.
Contribute to the price of
Yeah.
the to your treatment,
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. They're paying for the end result, where I think a lot of people look at, oh, what's the price? Oh, I'm going to go with the cheapest one. But they're not thinking about what is the end result they're going to get from paying that price. So I think even in many situations, what people don't realize is that they try and go cheap, but it ends up costing them more in the long run. Like, I think there's a great story that I've heard from other practices where someone comes to them, they say that, oh, this person over here or down the street will do it for a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And then the provider says that, well, I mean, they probably don't have as much experience. Maybe they're not using the legitimate items for whatever procedure or treatment that they're going to do. And then I remember in one situation, that person said, oh, you know what? They're just so much cheaper. I'm going to go there. So they went to the other practice. That other practice messed up the treatment. They had to come back to the original provider, had to pay that provider to undo what that other person did, and then they had to pay for them to do the right time, like they should have done the first time around. So they actually ended up spending a whole lot more because they were trying to go down that cheap route, because they weren't thinking, what's the end goal? They were just thinking, I want the lowest price. So I think that's one trap a lot of people fall in, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So it's a different perspective on what people should be looking at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've done a lot of correction work as well. So like you mentioned, patients go to different, like, hey, you're charging like so expensive or whatever, I would rather go somewhere else. And then I end up like, they will come back. I have to dissolve whatever work that they got and redo it again. They're going to cost a lot more than they should have just done it,
the
first place.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, I mean, how do you approach educating your patients about the services you offer, the benefits? I'm sure you get some people coming in thinking that they want one thing, but they really need something else. So how do you approach that educational piece when you're talking to your clients?
When I talk to my patient, I always said like, hey, I know you come in for lip filler, for this is an example. I know you come in, you just want your lips done, but I have to make sure that you are the right candidate. I don't just look at your lips. I'm the provider that will make sure that you look natural at the end of this treatment. So I will have to look at your whole face. Let's say if patients is not proportion, you might need a little bit of chin filler before you even get the lips. So I will tell my patient, think about it as that your face is a house. You can't, if you have a volume loss on your mid face and then you have no chin, before you adding the lips, lips is like a frosting on the cake. You have to build the foundation of the cake before we even put the frosting. So that's how I approach the patients. Like, hey, these are like, this is what I recommend. And we can't build the house from, we can't start the house from the roof. We have to start from the foundation. That's how they, it's kind of give that analogies. And they'll be like, oh, okay, I'll do whatever you recommend first, then I'll do lips, last.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Now, I'm sure that as you're talking with some of your patients, there's a lot of misconceptions that they have either about the treatments or about their situation. So could you share some of the most common misconceptions you hear about the treatments that you provide?
The misconception about, definitely the filler making them look fake, so that I hear that a lot. And I know there's a lot of people coming out like, oh, don't get cheek fillers, don't get lips filler, whatever it is. And it's depend on how, if you strategically placed it in the right place, right spot, you will never look fake, So it's that's why I said, it's very important when you find a provider, right? Even though you don't come to me, you make sure you find a provider that know how to place it.
Okay. Now, how do you also balance providing a relaxing experience for your patients, but also ensuring their safety and well-being?
I usually, before when I do consultation, I always tell my, like an emergency, medicine nurse practitioner. When I was practicing in emergency room, I've seen so many faintings and dizziness and all. So I know how to calm them down. So I use that, during aesthetic practice as well. It's like, hey, make sure that you tell me all your past medical history. Do I need to know that you're scared of the needles? Do I need to know that you can't lay down, lay flat or whatever, like, do you have any back problem? I want to know every single thing about your medical history. I want to know all the medication. So that way I'm prepared, like, okay, are you a good candidate? And then once we move on during the process, I was like, hey, are you, making sure that they're comfortable, making sure that they're calm, maybe turn on some calming music, or keep talking to them, make sure that they're breathing during the injections or during the process. And if they think that they might have, if they're more nervous or whatever, I keep, let them talk about it or give them a little break during the procedures. So that would be my, that will be one thing. And then when they go home, I usually give them my personal phone number. If they have any emergency situation or anything that kind of feel weird, feel off, I 24/7, I have them text me. I said, like, hey, you're never gonna bug me asking these questions. I want to know if you feel different or feel anything weird, off. I want to know everything. So that's actually helped them, like they feel more comfortable and also feel safe, that, I have her personal phone number, like I can text her asking all these questions. I know a lot of time like a lot of providers don't want to give them their personal number, but like I usually give them my personal number if they do a big procedure like full facial rejuvenation, full facial balancing, like let's say if they get like 10 syringes of filler. I want to know if they have any weird sensation. I want to know, if there's any sign of vascular occlusion. I want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Got it. Well, I think that's a really big differentiator, like you giving your personal number. Like I don't hear many medical practitioners giving their personal number to make sure that, hey, are you okay? If anything comes up, like you can reach me. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really big differentiator for you. Now, when it comes to the field of medicine, the word artistic typically isn't associated with the field of medicine, but in aesthetics, what role do you believe creativity plays in how you approach your patient care?
So one big thing of, a lot of, and it's also like, I know this kind of off topic, but a lot of nurses ask me, like, how do you get into aesthetic? Like, that's one thing though, like you have to be a little bit of artist. You have to, like, hey, look at the patient and you need to know what will look good on that patient. Like, what will make them look good and then still look like themselves. That is that's why that artistic like come in, it is an art. It's like you molding that patient's face, to make them look younger. You make them look like themselves but more youthful, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's the whole rejuvenation is just an art.
Got it.
Period.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Now I'm sure, Dr. Gwen, that you've run like the entire experience you've had over this time. I'm sure you've run into some pretty challenging cases that have come across your way. So could you maybe share a story of like maybe one of your best success stories where someone came in, it was a really tough situation, and how you were able to get them a really good result?
Success story with my patient. Okay, for me, success story is not just like financial gains. It's more about like the connection, how I can impact my patient's life with my, during their aesthetic journey. I know it sounds cheesy, but this is, I guess, just the way I am. One of the story, I would say, I have this one patient. She went to multiple providers, and she came to me the first time she came to me. She was very upset. She spent so much money on her aesthetic treatment. She didn't get the results that she wanted. I ended up like dissolving her whole face, and we redid, everything. And a year later, she texts me. She's like, you know what, you're making me loving myself again. So I guess that's one of my success story.
Yeah, I think it's a great success story. I think that's one thing that people don't realize, or they have this misconception about the aesthetic market. They think, oh, aesthetics is all about vanity. It's all about you just wanting to one up everybody else. But I think a lot of these success stories that I hear from a lot of practitioners all across the country, it's really their best stories are about how they help their patients, they help their clients make them feel beautiful or make them feel like themselves. I think that's one piece that's missing from people's perception of aesthetics. It's not just about vanity. It's about feeling comfortable with who you are or getting your confidence back.
Yeah.
And I think that your story was a perfect example of that. It's about her making her feel beautiful, making her like herself.
Yeah.
So now, Dr. Gwen, where do you think the future of aesthetics is going?
Yeah, I think the regenerative medicine trend is going that, it's going to be even bigger in the next coming years. And I can see that more and more patients like look at Lindsay Lohan, they're like, hey, what did she do, blah blah blah. I feel like it's gonna be it's filler still going to be there, Botox still going to be there. I think patients will be more focusing on their skin and anything that their body can build and repair instead of adding stuff. So that will be the new trend from now. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And I have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I want to point people to your website at www.skinboutiquema.com. Now, the last question is, what do you think is the most important piece of advice you can give to someone who's thinking about getting an aesthetic procedure done, but isn't sure which provider to choose?
So how we choose, like I tell my patients, like, hey, if you're too far and if you want to look at, you find any aesthetic provider, you make sure, first of all, you want to make sure that they're legit. That is the most important. I tell my patients, like, hey, if you know that you want to get Botox, for instance, you go to Ali app, you want to search provider, make sure that they're on that app, because those are the certified provider that getting Botox from an actual Botox company. That would be the first thing. You want to make sure they're legit. Second is, make sure that you look at their before and after. You want to look, I know a lot of times provider likes to do funny videos or whatever. For me, I'm not against it, but to show your before and after, that's your business card, that's the showcase. I know I'm not good at social media, but that's also when I'm really trying hard, like force myself to do it. That way, my patient knows that, hey, this is the result that they will get at the end. And also, I think we mentioned it before, like if if the price too cheap, is probably too good to be true. Like you don't know if they're using the real products. And then that's it. Like just make sure, like when you go to the consultation, like you want to make sure that they answer all your questions. You ask all these questions, the complication that can happen, what are the post-treatment, what I should be doing before the treatment and stuff like that. They should be able to explain it to you.
Okay, awesome. Well, there you have it, Dr. Gwen sharing her expertise. So Dr. Gwen, where can people contact you in your practice?
I like when patient texts through my business phone. It's 714-989-6806, because that's the fastest way to reach my clinic. And you can go on my website, or my Instagram website, skinboutiquema.com, or Instagram Skin Boutique Medical.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show and sharing your message.
Thank you, Daniel. Have a nice day.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.